Welcome to our 12-step Big Book Workshop. My name is Lisa, and I am a longtime student of the 12 Steps Recovery Method. So today we will be focusing on Step 2, and in the Big Book of AA and other 12-step programs, Step 2 involves cultivating the belief that a power greater than ourselves can assist us in restoring our sanity. So this step begins with recognizing our lack of control over our addictions and understanding that a new approach is needed. Completing step 2 can significantly enhance our quality of life because we choose to place our faith in a higher power, allowing us to embrace a more spiritual and abstinent lifestyle. So please join me in the set-aside prayer with a commitment to have an open mind, an open heart, and the gift of receiving it beyond our wildest dreams. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my will, and a larger source of power for a new experience with myself, step 2, and my relationship with you. And just a reminder, I hope everyone's using the set-aside prayer. I know I harp on that, but I do because it's fantastically amazing. So tonight we'll be discussing pages 53 through 55. And the phrase came to believe is part of step 2. And I remember at first I struggled to come to believe because I wanted to maintain my own control. And my reluctance persisted through numerous attempts. When I thought I had adequately followed the steps, I realized I still had not come to believe. And I really thought I was being meticulous. However, I bypassed the first 3 steps thinking my ages-old belief was sufficient, which should have been a key clue that it wasn't because my life wasn't working. And despite my discomfort with those old beliefs, I accepted them as my reality, and I was convinced that holding on to the beliefs throughout my life meant they must be adequate. I took them on this journey so far, so they must be okay. But when I look back, I realized that my beliefs were barely sufficient. There was some there, but they weren't actively fulfilling any deeper purpose in my life. So after a lot of contemplation, I admitted that my beliefs remained inadequate because I was diminishing God's influence in my life. I chose control over faith. And I questioned why a more powerful God was not offered to me. Because I relied on my own power for so long, I slowly pushed God out of my life almost entirely. And of course, there were times I wondered if maybe I was an atheist. I thought that it terrified me to think that I might be. I couldn't even think the words, "There's no God." I was afraid I'd be smited or something. So it seemed preferable to cling to at least a semblance of belief, no matter how minimal it was, just in case. So the fear actually kept me in place, but only for so long because I needed to separate the possibilities from my short-sightedness. So this is one of my favorite passages on page 52 titled, "The Bedevilments." They struck such a deep chord, and once I emerged from my denial, I closely examined these bedevilments in relation to my behaviors and my overall sense of peace and happiness. The list serves as a clear reflection of our unmanageability that's present in our lives, but it also reveals a different narrative for us if you haven't yet confronted these issues. And by sorting through these statements and recognizing their presence in my life, I was able to approach the second step with greater excitement. I experienced a completely new perspective on my life and the world around me. A power greater than myself began to liberate me from my habitual bedevilments. My life started to flow in ways I had never experienced before, and it felt as if a dam had burst open, and it allowed that Holy Spirit to fill the void where the bedevilments had already been residing. It was really quite an event. But, when you look at them, one of the biggest problems that addicts have is trouble with personal relationships, especially if whatever their addiction of choice is involves thievery. Some people have a drug addiction and they steal from their loved ones, and there's a whole lot of stuff that goes with those personal relationships. But that's where we really get caught up in life, is in the personal and interpersonal relationships. We just struggle so much. So the bedevilments are a great thing to look at and eventually overcome. Notice, though, that step 2 does not specifically mention God. The phrase came to believe represents the process that alleviates our struggles, but it doesn't say came to believe in God or in a God. It just says came to believe. And it's referring to a power greater than ourselves, whatever that might be, which may not necessarily be external, particularly when we reflect on the wording. This power is greater than ourselves, and we have already discussed the second half of the statement, recognizing its connection to sanity. But the type of sanity Bill refers to throughout the big book is not clinical. It's not a diagnosis. It's not hereditary mental illness. It's Bill's way of addressing the obsessive thoughts and how they affect our addictions through being overwhelmed, and how that leads to our loss of abstinence. So the hijacked brain, we went over a little more in depth last week or the week before, but I'm sure you all remember. It means that we are no longer being hijacked by the obsessions of our minds. We may have the memories, we may have leftover feelings, we may also have obsessive thoughts, but we are not going to be hijacked by them. We're not going to allow the obsession to take over, as it often has, before we realize what's happening. And when we're held hostage by no choice and no ability to prevent being attacked, no amount of our human power can get us out of this attack. We may feel we are doomed until we realize what is needed to repair the damage this being hijacked has done to our brain. And when we get some new thoughts and a new faith, we can start making new pathways in the brain so that being hijacked will become even less probable. So we need to attain a new state of sanity. And that happens when we reach a new level of clarity, often by the 10th step, as we've gained our spiritual shield through the strength of our faith. And the expression came to believe signifies a journey that might not fully materialize during our exploration of step 2. However, it is guaranteed to emerge by the end of the 9th step, the completion of the 9th step. And Bill expresses this concept by stating that we will find ourselves placed in a position of neutrality upon completing step 9, meaning we don't get ourselves there. Our higher power puts us there. So chapter 4 was a brilliant plan on Bill's part, calling it We Agnostics. because it really jolts us right into the big question. It gets us to open up and look at what our beliefs are, not the ones we just grabbed and didn't know why, but what are our honest to goodness, deep down beliefs? What do we really believe? Not what we want to believe or hope to believe, but what do we really believe? And it's okay to look at the belief because we don't have to keep it. You know, some people won't look at their beliefs because they think, well, I'm stuck with it. I can't look. But we're not. We can change our beliefs at any time. So, with this question, Bill is inviting us to overcome any resistance so that we can consider that there is a power greater than ourselves. And our only job in step 2 is to come to an understanding for ourselves as to what is meant by power. The question of, is God necessary? So, since we are co-creators, we take what we choose and create through the power of our connection to the source, the creator, our higher power, God, whatever you want to call it. Many religions teach that we humans are co-creators with God, meaning we are given the freedom and capacity to partner with the creator in the ongoing creation and betterment of this world through our actions, creative endeavors, and care for humanity. So co-creating can happen not just in our own personal lives, but on an even larger scale. So again, we have the human being, the model, and this model is critical to step 1, but also going forward, it's also critical in step 2. We need to remember who we are as human beings. And this model gives us an understanding of step 1. And I hope it helps you understand that we are human beings first and foremost in a body. And we have a mind, and that we have to enrich and enhance our physical body. So our mind is there to aid our bodies. And we all have our free will. But also, we realize that these parts are corrupt in all of us. Every one of those 3 parts is corrupted, downright defective. But that is what makes us specifically human, our mind and our will. But what does that mean specifically? It means we are human, we're finite, we are born, and we will die. We have a beginning and a foreseeable end. And last week, we encountered the slide titled, Who Am I as a Human Being? So being human includes a vast array of qualities that influence our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And the 5 qualities that define humanity are consciousness, empathy, creativity, resilience, and purpose. So the ability to understand ourselves, comprehend the complexities of our world, and to think about the future describes the core components of human consciousness and higher order intelligence. It breaks down into 3 interconnected cognitive skills. So the ability to look inward, to identify our own emotions, recognize our biases, and understand why we think and act the way we do. Then we have the ability also to comprehend the world. We have the capacity to grasp how interconnected systems work, like social, political, scientific, and natural, and how to navigate the gray areas of life without reducing them to oversimple answers. We also have the ability to think about the future. It's a uniquely human ability to mentally time travel. It allows us to simulate potential future outcomes and make prudent long-term decisions in the present moment. So collectively, these abilities enable us to adapt, to learn and grow, rather than just react to our immediate surroundings. and the desire to build genuine relationships and share our experiences, which are vital to our emotional survival and mental well-being. And this highlights that human beings are fundamentally wired to be connected to each other. So that means that forming deep, authentic bonds with others and experiencing life together is not just a luxury, it's an essential biological and psychological need required to maintain our mental health and overall happiness. So then we have creativity and innovation. So our drive to shape our environment, express unique perspectives, and pass knowledge from generation to generation. This phrase describes the fundamental characteristics that make humans a unique culture-building species. It highlights our evolutionary edge. We do not merely adapt to nature, we actively reshape it. We share our distinct creative voices and continuously build upon the knowledge of past generations to secure our future. And I think the only animal that does something pretty close to that are the elephants. They have generations and they work in packs, and they have mothers will take care of other mothers' children and stuff. They're pretty smart like that. So then we have vulnerable and resilient. The experience of feeling flawed, finite, and vulnerable, alongside the remarkable ability to endure and thrive in the face of challenges. Flawed, finite, and vulnerable. This refers to human limits. Being finite means having a limited lifespan and energy. Being flawed means making mistakes, while being vulnerable means you can get hurt emotionally or physically. And lastly, we have purpose. So we have this ongoing journey to discover meaning in our lives and make a positive impact on the world. Ultimately, being human offers you the chance to carve your own path, embrace the wonder of existence, and shape your own future. In philosophy, being human transcends mere biological existence. It embodies a continual exploration of consciousness, ethics, and purpose. Philosophers suggest that our most defining characteristic is this relentless pursuit to comprehend, create, and derive meaning from our lives. So as we enter into step 2, we realize it is a decision about power. On page 47, Bill says, willingness is the key. It's the key to the spiritual arch that we walk through to our new freedom. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. So here's my favorite saying, either God is everything or God is nothing. And this sentence completely changed and improved my whole faith process. When I encountered what I thought was a crazy idea that I needed a God upgrade, because I really did, I thought, who upgrades God? You know, that sounds very disrespectful. I spent time and effort to process what that meant to me in my mediocre level of faith. And it soon became obvious why my spiritual life was not feeling supportive and safe. And this information, it parted the Red Seas for me, no pun intended. On page 53, when Bill says, God is or God isn't, we are slapped in the face with a question of the depth of our faith. And I confronted myself with a lot of questions about that. Faith, by everyone's definition, doesn't have anything to do with the mind. It is not a thought or a certitude. It is not objective, nor is it science-based. Faith, by definition, is the opposite of all of that. And I know a bunch of you guys did look up the word faith, so you should have a little jump on the meaning. But it can be a feeling, an emotion coming from the limbic system. But our common sense tells us that that can't be possible because feelings are fleeting. They come and go, but real faith is the stability that allows us to live our lives in harmony. Father Richard Rohr gives a definition of faith, which is faith is the acceptance of that for which there is no evidence. And I think that's just a fantastic definition. So then Bill introduced us to a process of faith, presenting it as a choice to make. And this choice involves being open to seeing things from a different perspective. He stated, "It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built." And in the book, this sentence has an asterisk directing readers to go to Appendix 2, which discusses spiritual experience. And on page 567, it notes, "Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He eventually realizes that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life. Such a change could hardly have been accomplished by himself alone." This decision is not about addiction, nor is it about my free will or spiritual illness. It is a decision that Bill outlines clearly in black and white on page 53, when he says, "God is or God isn't. What is my choice?" Power is or power isn't. It doesn't matter what name we use. It doesn't matter what religion we follow, or even if we follow a religion. This power is separate from all other teachings. It's not internal. It's not external. It's not in a church or a building or a clearing in the forest. Although these places do enhance the presence we feel, that connection to our source, we're plugged in. We can go anywhere as we're charged up. So God is or God isn't. What is your choice? So once I make the decision that God is, my mind then says, well, that is pretty reasonable, given that if there is no power other than mine, which hasn't worked for me all my life, if there is no power greater than my own power, then there is no solution to my addiction problem in my life and reality problems. So my mind is going to have to really do some work around my beliefs. So in understanding faith and belief, we could define faith as an intentional act of the will, allowing ourselves to step back and relinquish control. Belief, on the other hand, involves embracing that decision as part of my reality. So I may lack tangible proof and not seek validation from others. And this understanding resides within me. It is a personal belief that functions solely for my own journey. If I were to share my faith with someone else, they would likely not connect with my personal perspective, and vice versa, because faith is very, very personal. So if I lack tangible evidence for my beliefs because they reside deeply within me, my personal experience reinforces my faith. Father Richard Rohr states that faith involves accepting what lacks evidence, and once we embrace it, evidence begins to show up. This is how my faith operates. It shapes my way of living. I acknowledge the presence of my Creator, which doesn't guarantee that everything will go my way, but it does assure me that I am supported. Previously, I sought proof that aligned with my desires. And when things didn't unfold as I wanted them to, my doubts got stronger and bigger. Richard Rohr emphasizes, only God in you can know God. You cannot know God in an intimate experiential way with your mind alone. You will need full access knowing, which many describe as non-dual consciousness, the contemplative mind, or even the mind of Christ. And I don't know how many people have followed that type of belief where there's actually two consciousnesses going on, one of the higher power and one of ourselves. But it's another way to look at it. It can work. And these are the key characteristics of faith. So, belief. Faith begins with a deep-seated belief in something or someone, often a divine being or sacred text that is not empirically proven. Hope is characterized by forward-looking and expectation for future manifestations of the unseen, believing that what is promised will come to pass. Action with genuine faith is not passive. It leads to action, such as prayer, acts of charity, or other forms of obedience, demonstrating the sincerity of one's belief. Where obedience is involved is faith involves a willingness to obey the tenets of a religion or the commands of the God that you believe in, even if it requires personal sacrifice or goes against natural inclination. Commitment, or commitment and devotion. A key aspect of faith is a wholehearted and unwavering commitment to God, a spiritual practice that involves a continuous effort to live according to divine principles. And some examples of faith in practice. The faith in Christianity involves believing in God, Jesus Christ, and the biblical scriptures, leading to practices like repentance, prayer, and acts of love. In Islam, it has the 5 pillars of Islam, including the declaration of faith, which is called Shahada, prayer or Salat, charity, which is Zakat, fasting, which is Sawam, and pilgrimage, which is Hajj. These are all fundamental practices that demonstrate a Muslim's faith. And then in Buddhism, faith is one of the 5 strengths alongside energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. And those characteristics in Buddhism are the qualities that lead to ultimately spiritual enlightenment. So I make a conscious effort to behave in ways that align with my beliefs and faiths. And in my case, my desires. I have a certain desire about the way I want to behave. I also carry myself as if my convictions are already a reality, embracing the old adage of AA, fake it until you make it. And during my moments of prayer or meditation, I practice these rituals without any preconceived notions or emotions, yet I firmly affirm the presence of my higher power. On page 53, Bill states, God either is everything or God is nothing, a concept we will explore shortly. Yay. This idea stands in contrast to the belief that a power either exists or does not exist. We have recognized the evidence, and now we need to determine whether it represents everything or nothing. I aim to live each day with the understanding that spiritual principles arise from this belief, including honesty, integrity, and moral ethics. I hope that you've all come to the question about God and have at least started the ball rolling about what that means to you. So we're at step 2, which involves making a decision. However, it's essential to understand that this decision revolves around our concepts. Therefore, we need to know exactly what our concept is. What do you need? What do you desire as a power beyond yourself? What do you consider as greater than yourself? Think about those questions and maybe jot down some of your thoughts. If you feel as if you have already examined these questions and are all set, I have to ask, is your life working out the way you wanted to? Is your support supportive enough? Or are you still trying to force or control some or all of the aspects that you need addressed? So the scientific explanation of gas, dust, and cosmic forces can relate to a creator in several different ways, depending on a person's philosophical, theological, or scientific perspective. For many people, science does not replace a creator. Instead, it explains the mechanisms that a creator might use. Science traces the history of the universe back to the Big Bang, but it cannot explain what happened before that initial moment or why the Big Bang happened in the first place. Philosophers and theologians argue that something cannot come from nothing. In this view, a creator is the first cause or prime mover, the ultimate source of energy that sparked the Big Bang and set the laws of physics into motion. So that explanation covers both science and a more religious view of the world or a spiritual view. And unfortunately, a lot of people think you have to do either or. You either believe the scientific part or you believe the religious part or the God part, but you can believe both. In fact, I think if you believe in God, you would have to believe both. So for the stars to forge dust, and for that dust to eventually form planets and human beings, the fundamental laws of our universe had to be incredibly precise. They had to be spot on. If gravity, electromagnetism, or the expansion rate of the universe were altered by even a microscopic fraction, stars would never have formed and life could not exist. Many view this extreme precision as evidence of a deliberate design. To them, the complex life cycle of stars transforming gas into the heavy elements needed for life looks like a masterfully engineered blueprint rather than a series of random accidents. In some philosophical frameworks, such as pantheism, which is famously embraced by thinkers like Baruch Spinoza and Albert Einstein, they do not view a creator as a personified deity sitting outside of nature. Instead, they viewed the creator and the universe as the exact same thing. In this perspective, the power surpassing individual existence is the collective sum of all natural laws, spinning planets, expanding space, and evolving life. The creative force is woven directly into the fabric of the gas and dust itself. There was a song back in the 60s or 70s. I think it was called We Are Stardust. And that's 100% true. We are all particles of stardust, if you really boil the human body down.
That's good.
So,
Woodstock.
yes, that's right. Were you there, Lonnie?
No,
Oh, good. I bet there a few were. So instead of a creator who built the universe like a clock, wound it up and walked away, some theological views see creation as an ongoing process. In this view, the force driving evolutionary biology, the birth of new people, and the formation of new stars out of recycled dust is the active, continuous expression of a creator's energy sustaining the universe moment by moment. Ultimately, science answers the question of how the universe came to be, while the concept of a creator addresses the question of why it came to be. So Melody Beattie, Melody Beattie highlights that surrendering to a power greater than ourselves can empower individuals, dissolve the illusion of control, and provide strength to face life's challenges. This higher power, interpreted through various spiritual lenses, helps people let go of codependency and trust in a greater plan. Rather than losing control, surrendering leads to true empowerment. It encourages individuals to stop trying to control others and find solace during overwhelming times. Trusting this higher power fosters self-reflection and personal growth, allowing for the release of self-defeating behaviors. The broad term higher power makes the concept accessible to various spiritual beliefs, including agnosticism and atheism. So, in unveiling that true self, we'd have to talk about, let's engage our minds as discerning tools, prompting us to reflect on our consciousness and confront the unconscious masks we unknowingly wear. These masks were once essential, crafted from our instinctual efforts to survive. However, our instincts may have led us astray. In order to discover our authentic selves, we must peel back these masks, revealing the essence of our true nature, the image and likeness of who we truly are. And I just had an experience with this, with the masks. My best friend's husband died this past week, and my stress response was to fall back into my old habit of people pleasing, caretaking, stepping in where I shouldn't. And at some point, she asked me to just stop because I was overwhelming her. And I didn't even realize I had jumped into my role again. And I put that mask on of I can handle anything and I can help you through this. I'm that person. And it actually backfired and did the opposite. And I found that really interesting because there were years that I lived that persona and it didn't seem to come up and show up as an issue, but it came right in, and I was really grateful that it came in right away, and I had to, make amends, and I apologized profusely, and I didn't even see it coming, but that mask that I wore, it came right back in after all these years. So it's always there in the back of our minds, that mask that we can throw on real quick and hide behind it. So Father Thomas Keating he's a monk. Actually, he was somewhere here in Massachusetts. I'm not sure where, but he was local. But he taught that our basic core of goodness is our true self. It's a foundation of divine light and love within us, despite the false self of ego-based patterns and past traumas that can cloud our awareness. He believed that this core goodness, which is rooted in the image and likeness of God, is capable of unlimited growth and transformation, and that accepting and affirming this is a quantum leap in our spiritual journeys. He has really great insights about the human dilemma. It's not necessarily 12-step, but it definitely is the same vibe. He's got a bunch of great YouTube videos if you ever want to listen to him, or he's got lots of books. He did pass, I think, a few years ago, but he's got some fantastic ideas that he's worth looking at. So, have you ever asked yourself, am I a spiritual being on a quest for a physical experience? Or am I a physical being in search of a spiritual journey? And what defines this core essence of goodness? And what is the true nature of the self? According to Dr. Jung, the personal unconscious emerges from the interplay between the collective unconscious and an individual's personal development throughout their life. Jung describes the personal unconscious as follows: everything I know but am not currently thinking about. All that I was once aware of but have since forgotten. Sensory perceptions that my conscious mind did not register. Feelings, thoughts, memories, desires, and actions that occur involuntarily and without my conscious attention. Future possibilities that are forming within me and eventually will come to me. So I have to ask again, do you believe there is a divine presence? And this question invites contemplation rather than providing a straightforward answer. It really shouldn't be a quick answer. You should really give it a lot of thought. It deserves some reflection and a lot of thinking. In this concept, whatever it encompasses is by definition it, with a capital I, whatever the it is for you. It is infinite, this reality, this power, this entity that surpasses my understanding, this creator with a capital C. It has no beginning or end and is infinite by nature. Otherwise, we must ask, where did it originate from? Who or what brought it into existence? We can only distance ourselves from it to a certain extent, after which the mystery remains just that, a mystery. We may not fully comprehend it, but we can certainly discuss it in this manner. So think about a fish in water. You could even use this as a meditation. The fish doesn't know it is in the water, but we know it can't survive without being in the water. The fish is not the water, but it is completely dependent on the water for its survival. Not being in the water would be catastrophic. So it's a powerful metaphor for the power we are seeking or already are connected to. It has its limitations, though, because it implies the fish and the water are two elements that are separate and independent of each other, which we know is not true. So how about the metaphor about limitation is quite powerful. It suggests that the fish and the water are distinct and independent elements. Now let's shift our focus to the ocean. Picture a storm brewing at the ocean side with huge waves crashing down, and one wave really stands out, a really giant wave. Let's say it's reaching 100 feet high as it rolls across the ocean. We can see it coming. And the wave has emerged from the ocean possessing its own identity. Yet it is not the ocean itself. They're separate, yet inherently connected. This is an example of me and my creator, separate but one, especially in co-creation. Bill says, when we became addicts, we could no longer postpone or avoid our self-imposed crisis of step one. We had to confront the bold proposition that either God is everything or God is nothing. God either exists or God does not exist. What will our choice be? It's a hard statement, and it hits a lot of people hard. And it presents a very profound question of faith, of a very deep faith. Bill reminds us that we can't dodge this issue. And he paints a vivid picture. Some of us had already traveled a considerable distance across the bridge of reason, moving toward the desired shore of faith. Welcoming hands reached out to us, and we were thankful that reason had guided us so far. Yet we found ourselves hesitating to step onto the shore. Perhaps we had relied too much on reason during that final stretch, making us reluctant to let go of our firm foundation. So think about Indiana Jones in one of his movies where he's at some place where he has to solve a cliffhanger, literally. He doesn't know how he's going to get from that ledge that he is hanging from to where he needs to be in order to solve the mystery of the storyline. He literally just moves his body as if he's going to let go of that outstretched hand, and a glass floor emerges, a brilliant glass floor that lowers Indiana to his destination. That was the leap of faith of the existentialists of the 19th century. This is the decision that we are making. A faith decision with no evidence, no feelings, and we make a decision to live according to that. We will get caught off guard at times, and we will regress, sometimes with our faith, but the core will always remain there. We have spent many hours, days, weeks, even years building that core up. So if we do get sidetracked, we get back on track very quickly. We are human. Shit happens. On page 54, Bill remarks, we found, too, that we had been worshipers. What a state of mental gooseflesh that used to bring on. Had we not variously worshipped people, sentiment, things, money, and ourselves? In this excerpt, Bill appears to playfully challenge us, inviting reflection on the idols we once held dear. He emphasizes that we often become sidetracked by our sensitive emotions, implying that we mistakenly view our feelings as solutions when, in truth, they are not. Emotions should not be seen as facts. Instead, they act as indicators that help us connect and maneuver within our environments. Bill then remarks, and with a more profound motive, had we not reverently admired the sunset, the sea, or a flower? Who among us hasn't loved someone? How do these feelings, these loves, and these acts of worship relate to pure reason? His reply was, little or nothing. We ultimately came to understand. Were these not the very essence from which our lives are crafted? Especially for us addicts. Didn't these emotions, after all, influence the course of our lives? That's a resounding amen. We can easily get caught up in our wacky emotions, mistakenly thinking they are facts, even when they're not. Emotions are unconscious, universal, physiological, and biological reactions to stimuli, while feelings are the conscious, subjective interpretations and experiences of those emotions. Emotions reflect the body's chemical responses, whereas feelings are the mental labels and personal stories we assign to those sensations. This makes them distinct to each individual, shaped by their environment, memories, and lifestyle. Bill says sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. This significant passage emphasized that we can only clear the ground a bit. If our testimony helps sweep away prejudice, enables you to think honestly, and encourages you to search diligently within yourself, then if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. Therefore, we are now equipped to take charge of our lives, our finances, work, and relationships, as we are no longer controlled by our challenges. Bill says, in truth, we were deluding ourselves, for deep within every man, woman, and child lies the inherent concept of God. This idea may be obscured by a disaster, grandeur, or the worship of other entities, but it exists in one form or another. Our belief in a power greater than ourselves, along with the miraculous manifestations of that power in human lives, are truths as ancient as humanity itself. Many individuals form their faith based on external circumstances, while some others allow those same circumstances to undermine their belief. How does one reconcile events like the Auschwitz genocide and the concept of a loving God? For some survivors, reconciliation looks like wrestling and arguing with God rather than quietly accepting a solution. Author Elie Wiesel famously wrote about an event in Auschwitz where imprisoned rabbis put God on trial in absentia for cruelty and betrayal, ultimately finding him guilty. Yet, after the trial concluded, the rabbis bowed their heads and began evening prayers. This response represents anti-theodicy, the refusal to justify God's actions while maintaining a painful, protesting relationship with the divine. Faith is kept alive not by excusing God, but by demanding answers and shouting at the heavens. Science and anthropology suggest that our brains are naturally wired to believe in some form of divinity. Rather than being a strictly learned behavior, belief is considered cognitively natural because of how humans belong in this world. So Bill says, I have to find a power by which I could live, and it had to be a power greater than myself. It's important to note that it says by which we could live, rather than by which I can effectively deal with my addiction. This suggests a path to managing one's life and being empowered to face reality as it truly is. This prompts Bill to ask, but where and how will we define this power? So here 2 questions emerge. 1 is where and 2 is how. Flipping to page 55, Bill provides an answer. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. Thus, Bill tells us that the how to find God is to search fearlessly. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us, which is Bill's answer to where to find the power. It's deep down within us. So then Bill truly captures the essence of the matter. He doesn't stop at the idea that it resides deep within us. He states, in the last analysis, it is only there that this may be found. It was so with us. Thus, after all the searching, questioning, reading, watching, discussing, this is where we ultimately arrive. Back at the beginning. It's quite ironic, but that's where we end up. The answers to the questions of where and how to discover the source leads us to this. And now he will express similar thoughts with different guidance. We can only clear the ground a bit if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice. Bill is echoing the set-aside prayer here, along with the new mindset of setting aside old beliefs. Bill concludes, hold on. So we embrace the broad highway. And Bill says, if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. And he puts broad highway in capital letters, which signifies God, which is what Bill does throughout the big book. And he says, with this attitude, you cannot feel. What attitude is Bill referring to? Does he suggest searching fearlessly? Is it about thinking honestly, or is it about searching diligently? These two reflect two aspects of our will and one aspect of our mind. Acts of my will are search diligently and search fearlessly. The act of my mind is to think honestly, embodying transparency, encourage in all actions. You cannot fail. Bill further states, the consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. If you have a moment at some point, check the promises on page 75. Bill mentions, we feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. And at this point, we enter a partnership characterized by collaboration, cooperation, and most importantly, willingness. So step 2 essentially involves making a decision. What qualities and attributes do you desire and require in a higher power? As previously mentioned, this step is simply about defining your understanding of your creator. There's no commitment besides the intention to explore and articulate your needs. For newcomers, this might take the form of a healer, while those with more experience may envision a different concept altogether. My understanding of the creator evolves alongside my personal growth. As I progress, so too does my perception of this mystery that unfolds throughout my life. Since I began contemplating these ideas, my consciousness has been expanding, and I believe this journey will continue in this fashion until I go on to somewhere else. So, Thomas Merton, his insights on God took shape over decades of contemplative prayer and interfaith dialogue. He transitioned from a traditional Christian perspective into a deep mystical comprehension of the power's universal essence. He stated that God is that reality that has no circumference and whose center is everywhere. He highlighted God is not a distant, static being, but an immediate dynamic reality, a living presence at the core of all existence. He also expressed God is discovered through the true self. One of Merton's most impactful spiritual concepts is the distinction between the false self and the true self, which serves as the gateway to finding our higher power. The false self represents the ego, an artificial identity formed from superficial desires, social accolades, and attachments to material possessions. This pursuit ultimately leads to emptiness and suffering. The true self embodies our authentic identity, created by a higher power, residing deep within us. It represents the soul that the Creator has cherished for all eternity. The journey to God is not an external quest, but rather an internal path of self-discovery. On page 14 at the top, Bill writes, simple but not easy. And the price had to be paid. And the price Bill is referring to in this passage is the destruction of that false self, that self-centeredness. And this suggests that we need to let go of our ego-driven lives and thoughts. The emphasis here is on unmanageability. He goes on to say, we must turn in all things to the Father of light, who presides over all of us. This reflects Bill's notion and invitation towards transcendence, resonating with Thomas Merton's belief that there is no defined boundary. On page 46, Bill mentions, as soon as we admitted the possible, just the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of things, we began to be obsessed with a new power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. And this is beyond our ability to comprehend because we're not at the same level that the Creator is. We're not even close. I have a connection to what is my truth today, but I can't back it up factually or scientifically. And I try not to go there in my questioning because that is not living in faith. That's living in my fears. And I also try on a daily basis to elevate my consciousness and awareness to the immenseness of this universe. As Thomas Merton said, reality has no circumference and its center is everywhere. Because our higher power doesn't come and go, there is no absence and therefore no presence of God. This is why Bill wonderfully directs us in step 11 to improve our conscious contact, and in step 2, establishing conscious contact, sometimes perhaps for the first time. And then in step 3, we are going to make a decision to have a conscious relationship with that contact. So the triangle is the human being, each individual. We are all encompassed in that triangle. But the spirit is hidden deep down inside of all of us. And that is the immanence. The spirit is all around us. According to Bill, there's a superhero within each of us just waiting to be discovered. With a mix of fearless exploration and a sprinkle of honest reflection, we become unstoppable. With this mindset, your beliefs, consciousness is bound to make a grand entrance. And this is an important point I want to make. First of all, the big book is always right. My interpretation is my interpretation. That's just a little disclaimer here. I realize I speak strongly, and you might get the idea that it is my way or the highway, and that is not even close to being true. Everything I say is my interpretation or experience or opinion. And the good news is you all get to decide what works for you and what doesn't. So take what you need and please leave the rest. If something comes up that doesn't feel comfortable, don't give up, don't quit. Thinking is not fitting your needs because it is. This is the greatness of all of this. I don't favor one religion over another, nor do I profess to know which one is best for anyone else or whether you should even have one. We are all individuals. No two of us are alike, and our personal beliefs and structures that mold our lives are as unique as we are. Please remember, I am open and available for any questions or concerns if something doesn't sit right. Just let me know and we can chat about it. I do have a question in the chat that I'm going to address now, which is, I believe that God isn't what is next for me. So in the event where a person within the 12 steps program can't come to a place where they believe that there is a God or anything along the lines of a God, the goal is to find something outside of oneself, meaning outside of your mind, your body, your spirit, all of that, that you can give the power to. Because as addicts, we misuse and mishandle power very frequently. We don't do well with power. We need to hand it off. So if you can't come up with a creator of any sort, some people in the program will give their group that they go to all the time, the one that they really connect with, they'll give the group the power. Some people give their sponsor, they hand the power over to a sponsor. Some people use an animal. There's totems, there's nature, there's so many things that you can put that power on and allow it to be removed from yourself so that you can live in the proper way, which is to not try to be in power, which is another word of saying in control. Addicts, unfortunately, have control issues, and we get into a lot of trouble when we are controlling. My story I told you about my friend, I was trying to control her upsetness by fixing things, and it made her more upset. So we have to give that power somewhere, anywhere but ourselves. Some people use what's called a God box. You get a nice box and you can call it anything you want. It doesn't have to be God box, but you take a piece of paper and you write down whatever the thing is that you're trying to control or overcome or deal with, and you put it in the box. That way it's out of your hands and you let it go when you put it in that box. It doesn't mean it goes to God. It just means you're letting the power go. That's the point of finding a spiritual answer. It's so that we can relieve ourselves of the burden of trying to be in power. So you can try to find different ways to pass the power off. And if it helps, think of the power as being a control issue. Because when we're in our addictions and we're in our unmanageability, we're trying to run the world, our neighbor's world, our spouse's world, children, you name it. We're trying to run the world. And nobody on this planet is equipped to do that. Whether there's a God or not, nobody has that capacity. So we really want to hand that control over to something, anything. Dig a hole in your backyard, throw it in the hole and cover it up with dirt. You're done with it. Get it out of your existence. So I hope that helps people with their search, with the big question, what is my belief? Where am I going to go with this? What is my power going to be? And how am I going to use it in a more effective way so that I can stop being subject, not only to my unmanageability, but to my addictive qualities that I'm just dragging around everywhere because I think I've got the power. So does anyone want to talk about their search or their power or actually anything at all? Or, just give us your take on it so that some of the people that are still searching, which I think we search forever because we keep going deeper and deeper, but it will help other people in understanding how the process works. And you've all heard mine enough times. So if anyone wants to raise their hand and share that, that would be fantastic. Or raise your hand and share if you're in a place where you're not sure again, because that happens too. Sometimes we figure out our power and we slide back and say, oh God, I don't know if I believe that anymore.
I didn't realize that, and this was really good for me because I didn't realize that you create God in the image that you need God in, and that you sort of that this is what you do, and you know,
Does that trouble you?
it troubles me a little bit
Mm.
because it means that to me in some way that God is a manifestation of my imagination, and
Not
that
not of your imagination, although it can be a manifestation of your imagination, but it doesn't matter, Joel, because you don't define God. You can explain it, you can describe it, but you don't create God or whatever your belief is.
yeah.
So if
Well,
you're imagining something or you think you're imagining something, it doesn't change what God actually is.
I mean, I guess that you can see it as being if God is an infinite in God is an infinite being. God, God is great enough to take the form of whatever your needs are.
Mhm.
So,
And
and that's
and the reason it can do that, Joel, is because God is everything. So it can take any form that you need it to be to get to where you need to go.
okay. Well, so I do two-way prayer.
Hmm.
And when I do two-way prayer, I recite my prayer and to God. And when I listen for the word of God, it's a response to my prayer. And it usually begins, Joel, this is what you must do. And it's specifically to my prayer. So that led me to, in this case, have my doubts as to, you know, the question and answer session. Is that just a product of my brain going back and forth and me knowing what I have to do, or is it really the word of God? So I guess there is some residual doubt. But um, a couple of months ago, I came in here saying that I think that I had found my higher power.
Hmm.
And I thought that, and I still do. I mean, I thought I found it in that first breath that the baby takes, that my children took, that my beloved dogs take. And
Hmm.
I have come to the point in my life where I'm not living with my wife. And she's living her life in New York City. She's still working as a lawyer, and I'm sort of up here in retirement, living with my dogs, and I'm secluding a little bit and trying to find myself. And my debting problem is still a major problem for me, and I haven't been able to get rid of my self-will run riot. And so I'm still working on my step one problems and my ego driven craziness. And I'm still trying to find, the let the power in of my higher power. And so it's still a process. I mean, listen, I'm going on my first year. Next month will be my first year. But for lack of a better way of saying it, I'm dying to really get something done here. And I really want to, but my own self-doubt and uh, uh, denial, I guess, are weighing heavily in the background. And I would really love to be able to just cut through the crap and the chatter and get to the basis of it, because that's where I want to end up. But you know, there is a road that has to be followed, and I guess you have to shed off all the. It's like the guy in the desert, he's got to shed off all that clothing and machine guns and bullet belts and all the crap that like in the movies, in order to just to get where he wants to go. And he's going to do it, but the process is the thing. And I just wish the process wasn't so damn long. It wasn't, I really want to do it and I hope I'm able to do it, but that self-doubt is consuming me sometimes because my debting, it's not even my debting. I'm not debting. Well, I guess I am because my consumption of money, and my compulsion is just, making me not pay bills, at the expense of, buying the things that, are this, the evidence of my compulsion. And so, at any rate, I don't want to go around in circles. It's a real conundrum, and I want to go back. And I wasn't here last week, as you know, and I want to go back and uh, review that session, and I want to go back and review this session, and I want to really try and, meditate, and that's something that I haven't been doing enough of. And I think that really the answer lies in like really doing the meditations and the prayers and, really concentrating daily on just getting the message back to myself. At any rate, thank
Are
you for
you
listening.
are you doing 10, 11, and 12 every day?
Not as such. No, I get up in bed with the dog licking my face at 6:45 every morning because the dog wants to be fed. I pet the dogs and I think about what I need to do. And then during the day, I try to live in a way that's not judgmental of other people and that's, service oriented, and that's not, not the way I used to be, although that creeps in every once in a while. And at night, I try to review, although it's hard to catch yourself, in every bit of, with everything that but I try.
Right. Well, you don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it,
Yeah.
you know? And what's going on for you is your ego is running your life. And when our ego is running our life, we've pushed God aside because we can't do both. And when you get into your ego, that's when your self-will is going to run riot and you're going to do your deading, because your deading is your escape. Our addictions are our way of usurping the power of God and trying to control our lives. And it sounds idiotic and crazy, but it is what we do. The deading covers up whatever's really going on that we don't want to look at. So when you get into a cycle where you're really feeling like you need extra help because you're feeling like you're on that edge, that precipice, you go to more meetings, you pick up the phone, you make more phone calls, you call your sponsor, you read the literature, you watch the videos. You don't pick up your addiction. You pick up your God stuff instead. Because you can't have both. Can't be an egomaniac and then say, well, I believe in God and God runs my life, because it's not a true statement.
Right. Well, I wasn't saying that though.
No, I know you're
I
not.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was
But
saying I'm
but
finding it difficult.
if you're living in your ego, and I think you were here for the class where I think it was Anita said that the old saying is ego is ego, edging God out. So that's what our ego's whole purpose is, to upset our lives. The ego is married to unmanageability, and they work together. So the more you're in your ego, the more unmanageable your life is going to be. And the more you're in your higher power, the more real your life is going to be, the more manageable your life is going to be. And that's not to say bad things aren't going to happen and you're not going to fall or you're not going to fail. The goal is to get to the highest degree you can. Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all human. But if you wake up and your dog licks your face, which is wonderful, my dog does the same thing, comes right over to the bed, licks my face, time for breakfast. My dog has to wait till my morning ritual is finished, or my day is going to suck. That's the most important thing we do to begin our day, is start with that 10, 11, 12, because that's where you're going to get your strength throughout the rest of the day. And then when stuff comes up, we do that spot check 10th step instead of doing a whole full 10th step. We do it right on the spot. You know, if I just had this incident with this person, I'm gonna take care of it right away, because that shit adds up and it weighs us down, and we carry it everywhere we go, and it comes out in everything that we do. So we're either on a path of recovery and faith, or we're on a path of addiction and destruction. That's the choice that we make in the first three steps. That's why the first 3 steps are so important. And every time you make the choice to follow your ego, because it sounds really good to do so, you have to choose again. Because your will always choose you. Your ego will always build you up to believe that you don't need a higher power. And then you can go do your addiction, because that's the route that you've taken. You're on that route. You're going to go in that direction. So remember, our behaviors tell us who we are. How we're behaving tells us who we are. And I say this to people, how other people are behaving tells us who they are. So we have to look at our behaviors. How am I behaving today? Am I doing my 10, 11, 12? Have I done any reading? You're retired. You have lots of time to sit and think about your addiction. So in the beginning, you have to make a very conscious effort to not keep going down that rabbit hole. And that's when you go to your toolbox, your survival toolbox, and you pull out videos, books, phone calls, ideas. Even if you have a hobby, it's better than an addiction. So you have to choose again. Every one of us, when we get up in the morning and we do 10, 11, and 12, that's our way of saying, I choose to live in the higher power today, not in the disease, not in my addiction, not in my regrets, or all those things I wish I didn't do or wished I did do, or, living in the future and the past. What happens to now? We miss our whole lives if we're jumping ahead and looking back. And the point of power is always in the present moment. Always. Because when we think ahead, we start getting controlling and judgmental, and we get all those things that we're trying to get out of because we're trying to control the future. And then we try to fix the past. Well, if we think about it long enough, maybe it will change. It's not going to. We can't change the past. We don't have a time machine. You have to learn to let it go or give it to your higher power. Get yourself a God box. Spend some time decorating it. Make it really cool. And put this crap in there and walk away from it. A lot of it's habit. We habitually abuse ourselves. And we get used to doing that. We need an intervention. Just like an active alcoholic needs. Something has to come between you and the problem. There's got to be a channel between the two of you. And it won't come from you. Because your self-will always choose your addiction. Always. No question about it. So tomorrow, when you get up and you do your morning work, and then you feed your dog, go fill your spiritual toolbox with all these things that you can grab instead of grabbing your addiction. Because the addiction is trying to tell you something about you. but you're not hearing it. It's a huge, huge flag. It's a banner. Joel, you're using again. You're using again because fill in the blank. And it's a tug of war. There's going to be times when you are spot on about your higher power and you feel like you're in the flow and you're doing great. We all do that. And then for whatever reason, who knows, doesn't matter, really doesn't. Don't analyze it. Don't waste your time. We fall back and we do that thing that we've done. But it's got to come from you and your higher power. You in your disease or you and your disease will never survive together. It will eventually kill you if you continue to allow it. It will eat you alive. You'll be on the streets of New York, homeless, penniless, and your addiction will be thrilled. And unfortunately, some people need to go to that length to really get it. It takes something that extreme to make us say, I'm willing to believe I can't do this on my own. Because every time I try, my life gets worse. Tiny bits at a time, but it does. Every single time it gets a little bit worse. So you have a choice. You either choose faith or you choose self-destruct. If I go any further, I'm going to sound like your mother lecturing you. So
No, it's okay.
you have it, Joel. You've had it. You know what it feels like. You know how to get there. You just forgot for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. Like you said, you're still an infant. It's your first year. We don't expect you to be running across the room yet. You haven't even learned to walk.
I wish I could walk a little better, actually. My arthritis is killing me.
Oh, you will. You
No.
will walk a little better if you continue your practice. But unfortunately, it doesn't come at the snap of the finger. That's called addiction when things come that simple and that easy and that relief. That's an addiction. We all want more and we all want it now and we all want it faster. That's why we're in trouble. The faster we go, the lower we're going to fall.
I listened to We Agnostics. I don't know how many times I did, and I just kept listening to it. And I think this time around, because it's quite different from the other ones which you're asking us to do, I realized that I don't like a lot of it. I don't necessarily get with, and one core thing that is the opposite of the chapter is a lot of my in recovery and outside of recovery, and it's different. Is been more kind of like anger for not getting what I want. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have that thing where I never had a preconceived notion. No, it's actually totally different. It's like, why did X, Y, and Z happen? Or even like the story that you talked about. Like, for example, you said, when very bad things happen in the world, kind of thing, and you used the example of the Holocaust, or there are many other examples we can give, sort of like that. But usually just in my life. But I have it for other things outside, and having that conversation, and then like the free will kind of thing, and then detaching from that. Like one of the things that I found that I'm more effective about getting closer to where I need to go when I kind of focus more on what is in front of me right now, and less in what I think God should be doing, if that lands. I do have to say, as a side note, and I think, I guess this is more kind of personal, but it's good enough. I actually really got one of the biggest, like, not an offer because I haven't gotten the gig, but one of the biggest, like, I would say, job prospects I got it while we've been in the workshop. So that's, it's just one of those interesting things. That kind of stuff keeps kind of happening. Um, More specific stuff just before I shut it down is like, I saw like that whole thing. You find you cannot quit entirely, or if when drinking you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably alcoholic. And I realized that kind of, for whatever reason, annoyed me a little bit today, because I was like, like, a lot of my issue has been that I've never had total abstinence. It's more like on my way to it. So then when I read that today, I was kind of frustrated because like that hasn't, I've gotten closer, you know what I'm saying, like to the mark, but it hasn't. I've been in my program for 3 years, like hardcore working the steps, but it's very, very different from other addictions. And an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. And it's been interesting. And I'm going to talk in a general way because I'm going to talk about other people, but it was really kind of good to see a couple of the people that I work with that actually, for some reason, the possibility of the lethal consequence seems more interesting than the solution. And I saw that with two of the people that I was working with, and I'm sitting there listening to them, or like one person blew me off, and then the other person is not really sure, once again, if they really want to take the solution. But it's a good reminder for me, and it really literally is that kind of thing. I'm talking about people who really have the addiction, not people who have it just a little bit. Um, and then, so to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. Yes, that's just like a continuation of what I was saying. Like, let me think about it, because I don't know if I want the solution. You know what I mean? Like, the
Yeah.
solution means I have to actually surrender and do what this higher power says. And then it's also that I have a daily reprieve. I got to do it again tomorrow. Like, I'm not going to get away with just kind of like, at least my experience, I'm not going to get away with like, oh no, I don't want to do anything today. Let me just think about how horrid things are. No, I actually have to really kind of focus on a like a deeper level. And I think one area where I still have a lot of work to do is it talks about it's open to all men. And sometimes I think I got judgment around that, because I think it should, I think like, well, why isn't it open to me? Or it seems like it's more open for you. And that's a conversation that, once again, is going back to my original premise of like getting into forgiveness uh, towards the higher power, and not sitting in the resentment. And I think that's enough, because some of the other stuff is kind of comparable to that. And I'll leave it there. Yeah.
So Mark, when you're trying to reconcile the why them and not me type of thing, that's an ego thing. Just like I was talking about with Joel, that's your ego showing up wanting to take over your life. And you're gonna treat that the same way I would have, Joel or anyone else do it. You have to choose between whether you're gonna listen to your ego or you're gonna listen to your higher power, or even your higher self. Because the ego is such a low level entity in our lives that it really has nothing good to give us. It offers us nothing positive. So when you're getting into those, why them? Why do they get this? Or why don't I get that? Or that comparative thing that has been really bothering you, you want to think about your ego in those moments. And the other thing is, you might want to, when we get to the fourth step, you might want to do a resentment on that whole mindset of the why them, and maybe even go back a little bit to the original event where this has happened and do a full blown, fourth step on it and try to eliminate some of it out of your life. I think you'd have some really good success with that. I don't know if you've done that yet or not, or if you even know, like if you like say growing up, your father was always saying, why them and not you, or, putting that on you, then there might be a resentment there towards somebody that was teaching you how to basically discount yourself. So I would suggest the fourth step when that comes up, or you can even do it now because I know you've done them before, but definitely trying to get out of that ego state of mind that you have this trap that you fall into, and getting yourself back out to that faith, that place of faith that you've really latched onto in the last year or so, and remembering that you're not your ego. You are not that ego. It is a false identity. And it's really only put there to mess with you. So whenever any of us are coming from our egos, like what I did to that friend of mine about the death, and here I am in my ego saying, oh, I'm going to help and I'm going to be, I'm going to make sure she feels better and I'm going to suggest this and that. I was in my ego that whole entire time and didn't even realize it. But that's how strong the ego is. It's probably the closest thing strength wise to our higher power, but in the opposite. So whenever we go there with that ego, we're on very dangerous footing, and we got to get the hell out of there and get back to our faith and remember all the tools we have. And same thing, make sure you're doing that 10, 11, 12 every day. And it's not a kind of do it or do some of it. Do all of it. All told, 10, 11, and 12 can take you less than 10 minutes out of your day. 10 teeny tiny minutes. That's less than the amount of time it takes to use a bathroom. And it's worth its weight in gold. It will eliminate that ego, the ego in all of us that is trying to run our lives into the ground. The ego will take you down and leave you there if it gets the opportunity. Go ahead, Anita.
I'm just thinking about how I got trapped in ego this week. And when a person says, like when I say no to someone, like, no, I really can't sponsor you, I feel guilty. Okay. So that guilt feeling is my ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should do it, Anita. You should sponsor the person. It doesn't matter that you don't have time. If you want to be a good person, then you're going to be their sponsor.
Well, it was a lot more than just I don't have time. It was like I tried doing this with this person. I tried.
Wow.
My ego said, well, I can help. Okay. But then it just kept, weird stuff. And it was hard, and you have to have, like you say, you have to have somebody who's willing. And I was talking to my sponsor about this morning, and she says, I'm so glad that you told this person that you could not sponsor. And why are you feeling guilty? Well, that's my ego.
Yeah.
And she said, here's something that my sponsor said to me, when I first sponsored. She said, if they want what you have, you can't say anything wrong. And if they don't want what you have, you can't say anything right.
Right.
And I thought, that's just it. It was like always, I couldn't say anything right. I'd say like, okay, I think in your case, we really need, make sure you have your doctor's okay to do this food plan.
Yeah.
Well, well, I think that you must all have the same sponsor because I get that same thing every time I talk to somebody. And it was just like, I couldn't get her to call, at a certain time, and it was just ridiculous, on and on and on. I can't call you. I'm going to Bob Dylan tonight. I can't call you. I got to go buy a car. I can't call you. I can't get up in the morning. And, I don't know.
You know how many?
I should have put this on no recording. But the thing is, I just thought, feeling guilty is my ego. And look
Yes,
where it gets you. Like you
yes,
said, look where
yes,
your ego gets you.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And whenever you are confronted with those things, just remember you need to consult with your higher power. When the ego's
Yeah.
trying to niggle itself in there, call
Hmm.
on your higher power and ask for support.
Hmm.
I need
Yeah.
support. This
And
is
my higher power just kept saying, hey, this isn't right, just get out of it. But so
yep.
finally did.
Yeah, there's a lot of ego around sponsorship. And,
Hmm.
you know, I've run into a lot of sponsors that are very ego-minded and they're not doing anybody any service. They're really not. You got to get out of the ego. All of us, everyone on the planet, this world is ego-based. It's
Hmm.
really unfortunate. And they don't work together. You're either in the ego or you're in the faith. Can't do both.
Hmm. Yeah, don't
No,
feel guilty for saying no.
exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Thanks, Anita.
Hmm.
Anyone else want to give their 2 cents worth?
It's gonna be just a penny. Hi, this is Heidi. Oh my God, I am blown away. You were talking to me all night. It was on Joel, it was me, and whenever you're talking with anybody, it's like, oh my God, I need to hear that. So, is it possible for me to?
Oh, you went to muted, Heidi.
Okay, so is this gonna be on a recording and
Do you
I
want me
can
to turn it
listen?
off? I can turn
No,
it
no,
off.
no, 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 no.
Oh, okay.
I'm fine. It
Okay.
just, am I able to listen whatever you said tonight again?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I have to listen to you every day twice now until I get this, but it was so powerful and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
You're
Heidi.
changing my life. I know.
No, you're changing your life. You're just
Right.
listening. You're listening and things make sense and you're running with it. And that's all you
Yes.
have to do. Show
Thank
up,
you.
get the information and run with it.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I'm
Thank
grateful.
you. Thank you. Okay, that's everything.
I have one thing to share. This is
Oh,
Jill.
Jill. Hi, Jill.
Hi. I I heard you again say today that you highly recommend that we do a set aside prayer every day, and I have started to do that, and you
Good.
haven't, and I just
Good.
and it's I just said, there's a lot of them out there. You have some. I just created my own, and I
Yep.
just started saying it, and just because you told me to, not because I really wanted to do it, but I did it, and it made a difference. It did.
See?
I started to just go. I think it made me feel a little bit more relaxed. It made me feel kind of like I was loving myself a little bit. And then I shared it. I was in this group where everyone was going around and saying a prayer, whatever prayer they wanted to share. So, everyone was from different religions in this group. So somebody did Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. I remember that one. And then there were some other ones that people were just reading from some religion that they experienced or something. So, and then I decided, okay, I can't think of anything but the set aside prayer that I just created. So I said it. And actually it was on my phone. So I said it out loud, And the person who was facilitating looked over and goes, I hope I'm sorry to single you out, but like that was amazing. And so
Wow.
I said, are you talking to me? So I said, are you talking to me? And because I thought he was looking at me, but maybe looking at somebody else. And he goes, no. He said, do you mind if could you say that again? Could you repeat it? I know. So he says, I think this will be helpful for everybody. So I said it again, and then he took a little bits of the parts of my set aside prayer, and he says, this is like, I used the word, please, God, I have to bring it up on my phone because I don't know it. But I said something about others. So anyway, he was just like really, and then everyone came up afterwards. There must have been about like 7 or 8 people said that was amazing. Thank you. So like I touched other people, which was kind of cool. I feel like, well, there's a little bit of step 12. I
That's
did a
right.
little bit.
Yep,
But
definitely.
it was just really cool, and I just thought I'd share with you the success and share everybody that just a little something. I said, okay, I'll do that one thing. What
Do
the
you
heck?
do you want to share it with us as our closing prayer?
Okay, I will.
Great.
I will bring it up, and here we go. So this is I maybe I got some of it from you. I maybe some from Herb. I have no idea. Some from the internet. I can't remember. But here it is. God, today help me set aside everything I think I know about you,
Mhm.
everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and set aside everything I think I know about my own fears.
Nice.
So I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help me see the truth.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Jill. And
Thank
I'm
you.
very excited that you're going to actually use it and use it all the time.
Well, yeah, I thought just first thing in the morning and that was it. No,
Oh,
throughout the
you
day.
can use it whenever you need it. Whenever you need it, if you're in a bind, like maybe you're at the registry of motor vehicles and you feel like you're going to murder somebody, pull out your set aside prayer.
Okay.
And you can, if the one that you have already set up doesn't work, create another one.
Oh yeah, yeah. I still have seen. Oh yeah, I thought this was like the template, and then I started to look even more, and I'm like, there's a million different things
Oh,
that are
yeah.
set aside prayers. Like when you're doing something about step 2, when you're there's set aside prayer for each step.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, I just sometimes have to do just a little something to
Yeah.
kickstart, me, because I'm like I've done enough, or I've had enough of this, or I'm all that. Sometimes I go, well, I've got it now. I've recovered, and I'm like,
Right. Right.
what? So anyway, I'll pass there. Thanks for the opportunity to
That's
share that.
fantastic, Jill. I really appreciate that because I know we had just talked about you using that and
Yeah,
you were like, well, all right, you weren't excited, but that's great. See
yeah,
that?
and
Look at all those people you touched.
yeah, I did. I touched many people with it,
That's
so
right.
that was
That's
cool.
right. With the
Yeah.
power. That's the power.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I just wanted to share. I started out with set aside prayer light for maybe a couple years. It's just God, please set aside everything I think I know for an open mind, an open heart, and a new experience. Amen.
That's really good because that's a great one to use in a pinch.
Yeah. And just like as a starter kit, set
Yes.
aside, because I'm like, I'm not writing down all those personal things.
Well, you know what? You can always do it off the cuff too. It doesn't have to be a perfect set aside. It doesn't have to say everything that the original one does. The most important thing is that we have an intention that God is going to help us and we're willing to let him.
Yeah.
And the
God
rest is all
set aside,
the
God
ingredients you
do
can
it.
throw in there.
God, please set aside everything I think I know for an open mind, an open heart, and a new experience. And so then, that became second nature to me. And then this time around, when I was asked to craft it for a personalized version, and I'm working with a sponsor this time, I went to town. I'm always adding things. Mine is super long now, but
Yeah,
that light version really helped me for quite a while.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Okay, everyone, do it, okay? And I will see you all next week, and have a great week, everyone.